Hello, everyone. My name is Gabriel. I'm a designer at Booking.com. I've designed and built my first website about 15 years ago, and for the last 4 years, I've been working at Booking. And just so I get an idea, a quick show of hands, which of you have ever used Booking.com to reserve a hotel? That's quite a couple. We were actually talking to a couple of my colleagues earlier about how cool it would be to actually show the number of all the people in the room that have booked for Booking, but we don't have access to that because of privacy reasons, which is pretty fair. So I thought I'd just ask. So it looks like a lot of you have used Booking.com, and you may have noticed various differences in the actual layout of the website between different visits. And the part of the reason for that is that we A/B test almost everything, and we A/B test continuously, and we A/B test at a pretty large scale. So just so you have an idea, we have over 100 designers currently working on improving the website constantly every single day. And I think 4.5 years ago when I joined the company, there were about 12 designers. There's over 100 now. I think 2 years from now, it's probably going to be 200. And there's a lot of work to do. So naturally, the question is, so before I go into that, just very quickly, data-driven design, as a lot of you probably know, is not a binary type of thing. It's not like we do data-driven design or we don't do data-driven design. It's more of a spectrum. Like everybody incorporates data in some form or another in their design decisions. In some cases, data can purely be a little bit of research just by looking at, hey, how do other people do this thing that I want to design? That itself is data. If you have a couple of years of experience, that experience will be incorporated in your decisions, and that is data that you use. So essentially, on the extreme spectrum of using only inspiration for whatever you design, you basically just dream up things without looking at anything else around you. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, there is no human touching the design aspect of a product. It's purely generated by an algorithm or a computer or whatever. And for those of you who can't read binary, as I can, obviously, the binary set under the data means 42, which, as we all know, is the answer to everything. So in inspiration-driven design, you're basically the person who decides everything based on whatever you like. But if you ever have to test that, and you put in front of users, and you look at data, and you try to see if that actually works, you might end up with some really, really unpleasant conclusions, and you might find out that you were actually wrong, and you're not quite as clever as you thought. And on the spectrum, everybody's at a different point. Like a lot of small companies will do some user testing, they will do some user research, they will maybe do some small-scale A/B testing. Bigger companies with lots of traffic and a big enough infrastructure will do a lot more A/B testing and incorporate a lot more data in there and a lot more research in their product decisions. And then some of you may have heard about this. There's a new product out there called thegrid.io. You can check it out, which fundamentally has as a proposition purely algorithmic generated designs and layouts, which I think is a very interesting approach. But the practical results of that are not quite as exciting and interesting as they promised it would be. Probably they will improve over time, but their goal is essentially to have one piece of algorithm generating really good design and websites, which is a very, very bold choice, but we might get there. In the meantime, there's still a lot of work for us designers to do. Over 100 designers at Booking, we have a ton of stuff to do. Because essentially, any product can be improved and should be improved to the point where it becomes a different product, and then that again starts being improved, because for every single aspect of any product, there can be something that will make it better. You can make it any changes to it that will make it better. So just a quick question. How many of you know what a Google is? obviously it's a big number, as you can see on the screen, but how many of you know what's the actual value of this big number? There's 1 and 2. OK, well done. So it's 10 to the power of 100. And for a bit of context, 10 to the power of 24 is a billion billions. So that's a pretty big number. And in case it sounds familiar, it's also what inspired Larry Page and Sergey Brin to name a search engine that you might be familiar with, which recently became a wide set of companies called Alphabet, where it used to be Google. And essentially, this is a very relative estimation of how many iterations and changes you can make to any existing product. Take any product that exists right now, you can make this many changes to it, because there's a ton of things you can change. Like this is a screenshot of just one part of one page of the Booking.com website, and it looks like a decently formed layout. At least I think it is. I don't know. You might disagree. But even looking at it, you can already come up with things that you personally, if you're a designer, you would do differently. Like you would think, well, maybe not quite that shade, maybe not quite that size for that element or the other one or whatever. And there's a lot of things to change and a lot of ways in which you can change them to try and determine which one is better. And this is fundamentally what 100 designers do at Booking. Because yes, we have a ton of data we've collected over the 15, 20 years that the product has existed and people have been using it. But data does not decide which direction the product will take. Data just report. Data is just a set of numbers that we look at, and we try to understand what users do. And this is the really, really exciting thing about being a designer, is because, and generally a human being, we look at things and we come up with ideas. We think, maybe this could be better. Maybe this could be different. And that's how a lot of innovation happens. Like people just look at things and go like, I can do a better job at this. I can make this work better. I can make this work differently, or I can come up with something else entirely. And this is really the most exciting part about working in a data-driven environment, is that as designers there, a lot of us just look at some data, look at the product, look at how people use it, like real people, customers like yourselves, use it, and we try to understand, why do you use it like this, and how do you want to use it, and how should we make it better? And then we A/B test it, we do user research, and we try to understand, and we look at data and see, if I've made that change, did it become better? And that's a really, really exciting thing. Like being able to learn all of these things is really fascinating. And of course, if you work in a small company or a small project, or if you work directly with customers, there will be a lot of times when the customer will tell you, or the CEO or whatever will tell you, yeah, that logo should be bigger. Now, the fascinating thing about working in data-driven environment is that as a designer, I have the opportunity to go, well, maybe, but let's see what the data says. And very often, the data actually shows that everybody is wrong. Like, a lot of the assumptions that anybody has will be wrong. 9 out of 10 times, even I, like, over 10 years of experience as a designer, even I am wrong a lot of times. And that's one of the interesting things in working in a data-driven environment at a large scale, is that a lot of the assumptions can and should be challenged, because everything that happens in a very specific context, to a very specific set of users, to a very specific product. So yes, you can assume that, yeah, grid layout is absolutely excellent for everyone, because we all know that. But then if you test on a specific set of users in a very specific context, you might find out that maybe not. Like maybe a grid layout is not the best solution for those customers. And that's fine. And one of the key things about making all of these iterations is that we're all very open about the changes that we can make. And we're very open to trying new things all the time and just moving past things that didn't work. And that's fundamentally because any problem can be solved in any number of ways. It just takes a lot of tries until you find the thing that works. And then, again, in a data-driven environment at a large scale, you can iterate quite rapidly, and you get instant validation of whether or not your idea actually, or your solution actually solves the customer problem. And defining the customer problem is fundamental to do that. It always starts with, what problem are we trying to solve? How will this solution solve this problem for our customers, ideally without damaging our business? Because obviously, every product is a business and it needs to continue to make money. So the most successful things that we do, and most of the things that we always aim for in A/B testing, is finding solutions that both solve customer problems and business needs. And that is essentially, by and large, I think 1 out of 10 solutions that we try is that successful one. The other 9 will be things that either don't work for the customers or don't work for the business, but that one solution that is successful for both, that ensures our product growth, and that has led us from going from 12 designers 4 years ago to 100 designers now, and we keep growing. So just very quickly wrapping up, focus on finding a solution that works both for customers and the business. We decide, as designers, decide how to change the product. Data will say if that's actually made it better. It's OK to be wrong. Most of the times you will be wrong, but it's fine. And just remember that there is always a way in which you can make a product better. Thank you very much. If you have any questions about this, you can find me around here and ask. And I can get into a lot more detail about how we actually work.